Hello and welcome to Giant Mess, a super sloppy sports and entertainment podcast where we cover New York Giants football, Mets baseball, movies, and TV shows. I'm your host, the real cinch, Neal Lynch. On today's episode, we're going to be breaking down, recapping, reviewing, and reacting to the Giants' blowout loss to the Eagles in Philadelphia, in which we most likely lost Cam Skattebo for the season to a dislocated ankle. We had everyone and their mother questioning NFL officiating and whether or not professional football is rigged. And we have a defensive coordinator that still is employed after really poor performances from a unit that we expected more of. We'll also preview the Week 9 matchup against the San Francisco 49ers. So without further ado, let us get it started up in Hyun. Okay, when we did the preview for this Eagles-Giants game, Week 8 of the 2025 NFL season, we said that we could potentially go in there and steal another win because this Eagles team feels different from years past. Defense feels vulnerable. Offense feels like it's kind of stuck in neutral, hasn't really hit top gear. Mix in the fact that A.J. Brown was out for this contest, and I believe their starting center was still not available. So you have a backup center there. You would think Dexter Lawrence would have himself a day. Not so much. But the concern on our end was defensively because we knew we were going to be without Paulson Adebo and Javon Holland, and ended up losing Cordell Flott to a concussion that could be completely avoided. And just, this is the Giants' luck over the past however many years, you know? Wait, how was Cordell Flott concussed? Oh, his teammate punched him in the face. You know, it was friendly fire, accidental. Okereke just, I guess, trying to go for the ball and completely whiffing and hitting Cordell Flott in the friggin' jaw. So we lose Flott, and so we're down to backups and backups of backups on defense, and couldn't overcome that. And the Eagles exploited that big time. So first matchup, Eagles were kind of banged up, missing some guys. Jalen Carter returns for this game. Did he have that big of an impact? Not so much. I think he did have a sack. And they lost Quinyon Mitchell in the first game on the Thursday Night Football affair. He comes back and gives the Eagles secondary boost. So it was almost like a complete bizarro world flip reversal of the first game, the Thursday night game, where it's like we blow out the Eagles because the Eagles are banged up. We took advantage of it, and we were able to run the ball when it mattered most. This game, it's, we're banged up in the secondary. Eagles take advantage of it and are able to run at will. Just 0 to no pushback or reducing the damage that on the ground from our defense. And to me, from my perspective, it's like this defense, the majority of the players on that side of the ball, feels like they gave up. Feels like they don't believe in the scheme. Feels like they're tired of going to the defensive coordinator and saying, hey, this is wrong. You're not supposed to do this. We should not be doing this. Let's do something different. Let's do, So there's a lot of disagreement on the defensive side of the ball. A lot of people biting their tongues. A lot of people trying to say the right thing, and it's taking every fiber of their being to withhold their true feelings. So we're in a state of disarray, and I don't know that it's really going to get any better. Even Jaxson Dart, in the post-game press conference, it looked like he was really devastated and emotionally drained and wasn't happy with the direction that the team is taking. Just from my attitude, outlook, mindset, where it's just like the perspective is just season's over. These coaches are lame ducks. They're going to be gone after the season. So why should we give 110%? And that's just not in Dart's DNA, right? Same with Skattebo. It doesn't matter what the score is. It doesn't matter how much you're down. They're going to give you everything they have. Sometimes that can hurt you. Dart forcing some stuff when he's down, but this really isn't about Dart. This game came down to our defense just giving another pathetic showing. Our defensive coordinator not adjusting, not learning his lesson. We'll get into a lot of the specifics, but it's wild to me that you can have a coach who's been given second, third, fourth, fifth chances to correct some situations and to correct your scheme, to correct how you're approaching the game, how you're calling plays, and just is not learning. And you could say that about the GM, and you can say that about the head coach. Progress. Not seeing it. Offensively, sure. I think fan base, myself included, feels a lot better about the offense than we have in years past. And that has a bright future. Even for the rest of this season, the offense has a bright future because you have Jaxson Dart. And even though you don't have Skattebo and you don't have Neighbors, I mean, to put up 20 points against this Eagles defense and to probably should have had 27 or more. Well, I mean, there was a time, lest you forget, where we couldn't crack 20 points. We were scoring single digits, low double digits. So the fact that we're averaging way more in the Dart era is encouraging. But what's discouraging and why people will start to tune out and not really, I think this was the backbreaker for a lot of the fans. Not just to lose in that kind of fashion to the Eagles, but to have Skattebo done for the season. It's just like, fuck. Like, I'm sure Dart's going to give us some really great highlight reel type plays. But this defense has made the decision, not collectively, because I still believe in a guy like Brian Burns. I do believe that Abdul Carter is trying to do his best within the system. How can you expect a rookie to go to a defensive coordinator and say, I feel like I'm not being utilized the right way? You'd have to have maturity beyond your years as a 21, 22, 23-year-old to go to a guy who supposedly has been in the league and has all this professional experience and to tell him how to do his job. It's just, you can't expect that. So the defense is the most disappointing this season. If you just have, I don't even think we're asking for a league average defense at this point. We're asking for just don't be bottom 5. Just get in that next tier and we'll probably have more wins than losses. But, in my preview, I said, I think we'll cover and I think we could win. And I don't think this is going to be an under. I think it's probably going to be a shootout. And despite the final score and despite a lot of the big discrepancies and disparities in the team stats and whatever, we were in this game. I know it didn't feel like it, but we were actually in this game. It did feel like it was getting away from us when Elliott lined up for the field goal and we're already down 7-0. We're about to go down 10-0. He misses it, and that felt like, okay. And for us to come back down, drive back down the field, and score a touchdown, it's like, no, we're not going to roll over here. We know our history in Philadelphia, and we're not gonna fall into that trap of well, we just can't win here. Even though that's basically what I said. Is we just can't win in Philadelphia. We haven't won there since 2013, which is an outrageous statistic. I also said we were bad on the road. It's not just Philadelphia. We're bad on the road, specifically this season, but definitely last season. We are now, I believe, 0-5 on the road this season. We have lost 10 consecutive road games under Brian Daboll over the past 2 seasons. So just can't figure it out on the road. And it's hard to feel hopeful at 2-6. I think a lot of again, I think this really just ended people. It just ended all the positive thinking and the hopeful thinking, wishful thinking, and holding out hope. I think that's over now. I think it's all right. This is where the season really goes off the rails. This is where players start quitting on the field, visibly start quitting on the field. And I think a lot of people are just going to be collecting checks. That's the general vibe I get, which sucks because, again, I have to keep pointing to that Final 4 game set against the Commanders, Raiders, Vikings, Cowboys. Those all felt winnable. When we had Skattebo, now it's because now you're down another playmaker, your second best playmaker. Neighbors was your first best top playmaker. You lose him for the season, you think, oh no, we're fucked. But then Dart's playing well, Skattebo's playing well. And you're like, all right, well, maybe we can make this work. And we did. The offense, I don't want to say hasn't missed a beat, but it hasn't completely fallen to the wayside. You're still scoring points, still moving the ball. Offensive line is holding up for the most part. Dart is buying time, making plays, not turning the ball over, which is good. And then Skattebo goes down. So it's like, fuck. Maybe those last 4 games aren't winnable. But you look at even the 49ers game that's coming up next week. That's not a dominant 49ers team. I mentioned it in last week's recap, after the Broncos loss. And I was like, if we had the 49er coaching staff, we're not losing that game. We're not losing the Cowboys game. And we're probably feeling a lot better about our chances to make the playoffs. But we don't. We have our coaching staff, which has proven itself time and time again to not be up to the challenge and to not have the chops to make the right decisions at critical junctures in game, before the game, after the game. There's just nothing there from a coaching standpoint that makes you think, all right, we can deal with the injuries. 49ers have that coaching staff because, when we get to the preview, you'll see it, man. Like, the numbers are not jumping off the page. This is a team that's 5-3, has the last wild card spot, is the 7th seed currently, if the season ended today. But you look at a lot of the stats, and it's just not you wouldn't associate those numbers with that record. And you wouldn't associate those numbers with this 49ers era, the Kyle Shanahan era. So, this Niners game at home feels winnable. But we're talking Eagles now, Giants-Eagles. I wasn't able to watch this on a big TV with the sound on, so I missed a lot of the commentary that was going on about the officiating. A lot of the officiating felt funky and fishy just from the visual standpoint, but I didn't get a lot of answers, and it was just like, all right, well, I mean, I'm not in a position to really make a lot of judgment calls because I'm watching on a cell phone on mute because I was celebrating a friend's birthday, and they're not Giants fans. So it was a tough watch. But when Skattebo goes down and when it initially happened, he's sitting there and he's asking for help, and people are not helping him up. And I'm like, why isn't anyone helping him up? And then I see Dart losing his fucking shit, yelling, fuck. And then I see John Michael Schmitz Jr. with his head down, taking a knee, and his head in his hand, and I'm just like, oh, okay. That's serious. You're not going to get those kind of on-field reactions from players unless it is really bad. So, and then I think the game really changed after that. I think it shook some players, and it just took a lot of the energy out of the team, which is crazy too, because when he's getting carted off, right? When Scat's getting carted off, he's still encouraging the team. He's like, let's fucking go. He's telling them, let's go. He's really trying to rally the team. And for the team to respond like they did, it's like, yeah, it just sucks. You had to think that this is not the same old repeat of the Thursday night game on play 2 from the Eagles' first drive, where Barkley scampers 65 yards for the touchdown. Darius Muasau in that play got caught up in the wash. There's a massive hole. Nubin doesn't see it and react to it quick enough. He's too slow, doesn't meet Barkley in the hole or closer to the line of scrimmage. And Barkley, that's no contest. Barkley's going to beat him, make a move and beat him to the end zone. So that was, I was like, okay, we're not just going to run it back against this team like we did in week 6. Scat catches that 18-yard pass from Dart. Great pass by Dart. Even better route by Scat. This is why, I've said it in previous episodes, but he's much more than how he's been painted and portrayed as this dumb dude who just wants to run people over. That's a quintessential example of his skill set and how it's more than just, I'm going to run you over. He releases the linebacker, tries to take his outside, or tries to cut him off and cut him off. And so Skattebo does a swim move on the linebacker, comes back inside. Dart recognizes it right away and puts it right on him. Very accurate, and waltzes in for the touchdown, the game-tying touchdown. And it was like, I mentioned it. He had a touchdown catch against the Broncos last week where he showed a lot of great vision. This wasn't so much patience and vision as it was, dude can get open. He's not going to let you impact his route or affect the route. He's going to on the fly modify it and get past you and get separation. And so that's what stinks when you lose a Cam Skattebo. You're losing short yardage positive plays, goal to go positive plays out of your running backs in the pass game. Like, you're losing so much. The guy scores touchdowns. The guy gets first downs. He is a difference maker. Like I said, the second best playmaker behind Neighbors. So now you're down your two best playmakers. Saquon catches in the second quarter. He catches the 9-yard touchdown pass from Hurts. I guess there was some broken down coverage, miscommunication on that, which is bound to happen when you go through as many guys as we have in the secondary. Not having a Debo, not having Holland. Belton is now your starting safety. They eventually moved to have Raheem Lane as the third safety. You had obviously Adebo not available, but then Flock gets hurt with the concussion. Then you have Art Green go down with a hamstring. So you have a lot of guys in there who just have not seen a lot of first team reps across the board. And you're bound to have miscommunication. You're bound to not have that kind of chemistry. So there are just not many answers for Barkley and the Eagles offense from our defense. And what really sucked and where the game started to get out of reach is towards the end of the first half, late in the second quarter, we're down 14-7. You obviously lose Skattebo. The Giants have a chance to tie it up here. Like, they're in Eagles territory. They're driving. It's 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6. And this is where Theo gets down the left sideline outside the numbers. Dart puts a all-time, all-pro, gold jacket, Hall of Fame type level throw pass to Theo Johnson. Hits him right in the hands. You could not have thrown that ball any better, and he drops it. So now you have everyone and their mother saying, like, all right, Theo Johnson is just Evan Engram 2.0, and now people are saying, oh, he might be worse than Evan Engram. Because at least with Evan Engram, it's like, should have made the catch, but I can see how, like, that's not an easy catch. With Theo, it's like these are catchable balls. These are very catchable balls, and you're not coming up big. So who knows if you score a touchdown there because you don't have Skattebo, who's been so clutch in the red zone. But you gotta like your chances more with Jaxson Dart in the red zone. Our red zone percentage has gone up dramatically with him taking snaps. So would have been nice. We would have got into the inside the 20 for sure. I think we would have been inside the 15 possibly. And then to only kick a field goal there, that feels like a loss. And it feels like we're not going to win this game by kicking field goals. Not with a team like this that just doesn't attempt a lot of field goals and goes for it and scores touchdowns in the red zone. So that felt like, okay, well, that feels like a loss. So to go, with a little under 3 minutes left, it's 14-10, and this is where the defense collapses yet again. We get a bad kickoff, which the kickoff from Gillen were bad. The coverage was bad, and you allow the Eagles to not just kick a field goal at the end of the half, but to score on a 6-yard pass from Hurts to Dallas Goedert, who killed us yet again. Do not have an answer for Dallas Goedert. So 21-10 at half. And it was just like, no Neighbors, no scat. Kind of tough to think that we have any chance coming out. And then I believe we got the ball to start the second half and couldn't put a drive together. Eagles kick the field goal, make it 24-10. We come back again, another situation where we kick a field goal, but that feels like a loss. A 34-yard field goal. We're down by 14, and we're kicking a field goal. So now we're down by, 11? So it's like, all right, so we'll get another field goal and then a touchdown and a 2-point conversion, and it's just a lot to expect of your offense. I know that the offense has been playing at a much better, playing much better with Dart at the helm, but it just felt like, oh, we're kicking field goals. They're scoring touchdowns. We're kicking field goals. That's not how you win games. And then, when Dallas Goedert caught that 17-yard pass from Hurts at the beginning of the fourth quarter to make it 31-13, it's like, all right. You can make the argument that if that deep pass to Darius Slayton isn't called back, it's then 31-20. Maybe you have enough within you to put up a serious effort in terms of rally, but the Jahan Dotson 40-yard pass, 40-yard touchdown from Hurts to make it 38-13 with about 6 minutes left to go was pretty much the final nail in the coffin. In terms of expected points, our defense was atrocious. I think this was our worst game defensively, which is saying something considering how bad we were against the Broncos and how bad we were against the Cowboys. Those two outings, it feels like that would be hard to top for the defense in terms of how shitty they've been. But, rush defense was minus 17 expected points, minus 9 points for the pass defense. The Eagles defense wasn't all that great. They were negatives across the board, passing and rushing defense for the Eagles. Our kickoff, I think that was the worst game from our kickoff unit, minus 8.46. Kick returns were decent. Punts were okay. Punt returns, I thought we would do a little bit better there, but that was a negative overall. And our offenses were pluses across the board. Not a lot of expected points from our offense, but all things considered, I think they did the best that they could. But the Eagles' rush offense was just, my God. We only got 13 first downs. Philly had 23. They ended up with 276 rushing yards on 33 carries and a touchdown. We only mustered 68 yards on 21 carries. Dart was sacked 5 times. I think only one of those could be on the offensive line. I think the rest were pretty much like coverage sacks where Dart's just not getting rid of the ball, hoping that something comes up. And, a lot of plays where like he's scrambling, he's looking, he's trying to buy in time, he's trying to find something down the field, and 0 targets were getting any kind of separation, which again has people saying, oh, we need to get him a weapon. We need to get him a weapon. That's just tough to do at this point. It's just tough to do. I think if you, at 2-6, I just don't see it happening. I think if they were 4-4, 5-3, 500 or better, you would see the Giants make a much more concerted effort to get it done. At this point, I think ownership in the front office has to be reminding Shane that, like, I tread lightly. Like, please do not risk the long-term future of this team just because you want to save your job. But 5 sacks, but only 15 yards lost. So while Dart definitely took some sacks that he didn't need to, and he definitely should have thrown it away a bunch of times, not a lot of yards lost there. So I'm not going to get too down on him for that. You like to see it corrected, but the fact that we only lost 15 yards on 5 sacks I'm fine with that. We got 4 sacks. One of them was huge, 16-yard sack by Brian Burns, which was great to see. I think Dexter Lawrence got half a sack, Darius Alexander half a sack, and I want to say, forget who else, but we had more net passing yards. They had 427 total yards. No fumbles, no turnovers, no interceptions. Fairly clean game in that respect. We did have 7 penalties for 54 yards. Eagles had 5 for 30. We were 5 for 12 on third down, which is not bad. Eagles were only 2 for 8 on third down. Just didn't get into a lot of third down situations. And we'll get into like the nitty gritty of the statistics and details around it, but it's like we get the opposing offense, not just this game, but historically this season, We get opposing offenses into favorable downs and distances after first down and potentially second down. Not so much this game, but first and long, second and long. Feels like that's where we put the opposing offense, and then we cannot stop them from first long or second and long. And even third and long. There wasn't a lot of third and longs here, but a lot of second and longs in this game, and just it was like didn't get the third down. Like that's what's so crazy is like second and long, at least get the third down. The fact that you couldn't even get the third down from a second and long, it's just like okay, yeah. They own time of possession. They were 2-2 on fourth down. We were 1-1. So I guess we could talk about the officiating. Piss poor. I thought it wouldn't have garnered as much national attention as it has, but the fact that it's getting all kinds of media attention from not just Giants fans, but from like the likes of like Tony Dungy, and people in the know, people who have a lot of experience in the NFL, and saying like this is inexcusable, unacceptable. And I think everyone's weighed in on this. Like, would it have made a difference if the calls went our way or went correctly? You can't say no. Would it have resulted in a win? Probably not, but gives you a better chance. The Tush Push no call was insane. Not calling a fumble there. There was 12:53 left in the second quarter, and obviously Hurts gets the first down after he gets kind of initially stopped, but then he has the guys push him, so that continues the play. And I don't know. To me, it looks like he's still moving forward. He's reaching out the ball to make sure he gets the first down, which I don't think he needed to do. And Kayvon rips it out of his hands. And it looked like a fumble on the play. And if they did not blow that dead, I forget who picked up the ball. I want to say it was Deontay Banks, but I think it was a linebacker, maybe Dane Belton, or D-back or Dane Belton, someone from the secondary. And they would have. I feel like they might not have scored, though, because I think Barkley was right there. But, ends a drive, gives us the ball back. Maybe that's the spark that really drives us. And instead, they claim that the forward progress had stopped. Just devil's advocate real quick. That had to be the quickest forward progress stopped in the history of NFL. Like milliseconds we're talking about he was stopped. And my only thought is that Kayvon, it wasn't like an immediate rip. It's like he got his hands on it, and then he did that one little, like he really put more effort into it. And I think by him just delaying ripping it out a little bit is what cost him. But it's completely the wrong call. And the Eagles end up scoring on that drive. So what's interesting to me is I was watching the Packers-Steelers game when I finally got back home, and the Steelers score, or Rodgers throws Roman Wilson in the end zone. He catches it, but with his two hands, has control of it, but he doesn't pull the ball into his body. Like he caught it, the ball's not moving. He takes one step, he takes two steps, he takes three steps. The ball is still not towards his body. He's still just holding it out there, but you can tell, like there's no wiggle, there's no slippage. He's got it. And then the Packers defender, swats at it and knocks it out of his hands. It goes out of the back of the end zone. And so they initially ruled it as incomplete. I think there was like 2 minutes and 7 seconds left in the game at that point. Or was it the first half? It was either the first half or the end of the game. I think it was end of game. The Steelers, I believe, are out of timeouts, so they cannot challenge. And because it's over 2 minutes, there's no... and it's not a scoring play. Like, is it a scoring play if it was ruled incomplete? I don't know. Like, it's in the end zone. But, like, typically, reviews come from, quote-unquote, the booth. So they have the review team on site, on location. And then they have another replay assist team in New York. I don't understand how you can have those two units, both the review team on site, not the referees, like a separate review team on site, and the guys in New York, have all those people a play and not buzz down and say no, because if it's under 2 minutes, the booth could review it, but it's not under 2 minutes. It's 2 minutes and 7 seconds. So but which I didn't know this was a thing, but New York can just call the refs and be like, yeah, clear and obvious error. Okay. How have we not seen that? Like, what? And then the referee, the rules analyst on the Sunday Night Football broadcast made it sound like so, like, yeah, New York can call, and if it's a clear and obvious error, they call and they get it right. And it's like, is that for any play? Like the fact that some shit is non-reviewable doesn't make sense. I guess they don't want to really slow down the pace of the game, but wouldn't you rather just get it right? Like, there was an obvious tripping call in the Lions-Bucks game. None of the refs saw it. I guess that's not something that I guess you can really review. We all see it on TV. Everyone's reacting to it on social media, not just fans. I'm not a fucking Lions or Buccaneers fan, but I saw them and was like, oh, tripping. New York can't call and be like, hey, that was tripping. So in this case, you have everyone in the broadcast booth, Kevin Burkhardt and Tom Brady, which I found out later, were like, yeah, the refs are in a slump. Like, the ball is clearly out, and then you hear the whistle. So I just don't understand, especially with the specifically with the tush push. I've said that, like, oh, I don't have a problem with the play itself if it's executed legally and correctly. But the referees, time and time again, have been unable to officiate that play correctly. So it's like, all right, well, I guess because they can't officiate it correctly and it is illegal what's happening with the false starts and what have you, then I guess you do have to ban it. And a lot of people are saying that this is the final straw that broke the camel's back, that we are now going to see this banned in the offseason. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's fine with me, dude. I just know on the record, officially, I was against it because it is like the essence of football. Here are my guys, here are your guys. We're stronger than you. We're gonna push you. Like, it's just sheer strength and will. Like, it just feels like a football play. Even though people say it's more of a rugby play, it's like it just like if my team is running that and is as successful as doing it, like, I wouldn't want it banned. So I get it, but when you have it, like, there is rarely a time, more times than not, something illegal is happening on that play. It's either a false start or they're getting something wrong on the play from an officiating standpoint, and that's why it's going to go. After the game, Kayvon said it was bullshit, and Brian Burns is like, you're going to get fined, and he's like, oh, no, it was a great call. It's like, I also never understood this. Like, why can't a coach criticize the officiating? Why can't a player criticize the officiating? My guess is it's like the NFL wants to uphold some level of, like, sportsmanlike conduct. I just disagree with it. Like, just let them say what they want about the fucking referees, man. I don't, like, has that improved the game? You have to look at it from are you improving the game by doing that? Or do you it's just a revenue thing? Like, oh, this is easy money. Because we know players and coaches are going to continue to do it, and it's never going to stop. It's almost like speeding tickets, like, police need revenue, and they're like, well, I know it's a highway. I know it's 55 miles per hour. I know that everyone goes at least 10 to 15 miles per hour over that speed limit, but we're going to ding you at 66 miles per hour, 71 miles per hour. It's like, okay, but let's continue to let reckless drivers just weave in and out of traffic and fucking cause accidents. Okay. So yeah, that's gives you just, like, when you see that and you see the Skattebo injury, it's like, oh, it's just one of those games where it's just, okay, it's just not going our way. You then have a false start on the left tackle, which I didn't see live, but crucial situation where the Eagles are in Giants territory and the left tackle twitches just ever so slightly, but you can't do that. It's a false start. And so Kayvon jumps off sides on purpose because the guy twitched to hopefully get the referees to call the penalty on the left tackle. They don't. Instead, they call neutral zone infraction on Kayvon. And so that gives the Eagles, I think they were at 2nd and 6, 2nd and 7, and so that sets them up with 2nd and 1, 2nd and 2, which they'll convert, 9 times out of 10. You have the Slayton offensive pass interference, which I talked about. The game was pretty much out of hand at that point. And to be honest, we shouldn't have even gotten to that play because it really did look like Jaxson Dart fumbled the ball, unless you are going by the strictest interpretation of the rule, because his arm was just going forward. Like, you want to talk about like milliseconds. It's like it just started going forward when his arm gets hit and it comes out. So if they had called that a fumble, I wouldn't have been pissed about that. But they don't. And they say Giants ball still, 4th and 11. And Slayton beats Quinyon Mitchell. There's some hand fighting. Mitchell, I have a screenshot of it right here, and I know we shouldn't play the screenshot game because it's not real time. I get it. But Jesus Christ, man, the guy has a handful of Slayton's jersey as Slayton's trying to run away. That's not impeding and interfering with the attempt to catch the ball. You watch it back in real time. If you watch it from the one angle where it's from behind Mitchell, going from behind the offense down the field, no, you don't see it. But from the side, you see it, and it's only for a second. But, that's what are we doing here? What's wild is, again, the Packers-Steelers game I'm watching. I saw this on a highlight, a replay. I didn't see this live, but Jordan Love, I guess he's in his own territory. There's some pressure there, and he is falling back, and he just lofts the ball up. Steelers are in man coverage, but it's really almost like a quarter of the field, half of the field on the right side. There's just Tucker Kraft and a defender. The ball is hanging up there. It's almost essentially like a punt. The Steelers defender has his back to the ball, not looking at the ball, and he's making contact with Kraft. Kraft tosses him aside to catch the ball. No penalty on Tucker Kraft. That's like way more egregious of an OPI than Slayton's. Did Slayton's arm extend? Yes. Was it a strong push off? No. How many times do you see that from a guy like DK Metcalf near the goal line, like in a goal-to-go situation where there's a fade or there's trying to make a double move and you're coming out of something and there's some contact, some press coverage, and there's always been push-offs from offensive players, and as long as it's not like you're, but I guess once the ref sees that arm extended, he's going to call it. What's crazy about this is the ref doesn't throw the flag until Slayton catches the ball. It's like he catches the ball, it takes a couple steps, then he throws the flag. It's like, well, okay. So you were either on the fence about it or I don't know. You had the Wan'Dale Robinson block in the back that crushed us on another drive. Block in the back is always such a subjective call. It's like, how many times have you seen a guy come from the side and because the defender, like at the last second, turns their shoulder in, it looks like a block on the back, when in reality it's like, no, it was just on the side. So that was horseshit. And then, of course, the Corey Black defensive pass interference on a 3rd and 11 where Cooper, the Eagles wide receiver, runs a comeback route. He presses down the field and then has a comeback route. And hand fighting, you could definitely call that's like hand fighting, which they usually allow, or at least the rules analyst said they allow it. And incomplete pass, but then they throw the flag, so it's an automatic first down. You could say, all right, Corey Black's left arm is on the receiver, but at the same time, the receiver is taking his right arm and pushing Corey Black off him. Isn't that the same exact thing as what happened with Slayton? Not the exact thing, but pretty close. So K60 on X said, Eagles are better than the Giants, especially given the injuries the New York Giants had and sustained during the game. I take issue with it being a sure thing that the Eagles would still win. There's so much that goes into momentum. 2 referee calls, the fumble on the Tush Push, the Slayton OPI, that's at least a 14-point swing already. So you're looking at, instead of being 38-13, or 38-20, it's 31-27. Then you have the offsides on Kayvon, which was a clear false start on Maileta, leading to the Saquon touchdown on the next play. So do the Eagles score a touchdown now, or do they kick a field goal if that false start is called? The non-OPI call on Cooper, which was a DPI on Black, also kept the chains moving for Philly. So there's also, the Zach Bond's tackle on Cam Skattebo when he dislocates his ankle. I don't know. I think that's a hip drop tackle. I'm torn on it because it's, I know guys like defensive players are against it, and I get it because there are already so many rules going against defenses because the NFL wants more scoring. It's more entertaining to have more scoring, and so they want more offensive points, and so the advantage is to the offense. And so, Carl Banks was saying on the Believe podcast with Bob Papa that, you want to try everything to get a guy down within the rules. And so he's not a fan of the hip drop penalty rule, but by definition, that was a hip drop tackle. And if he doesn't make the tackle in that way, Scat doesn't dislocate his ankle. And the fact that it's Zach Bond adds fuel to the fire because Zach Bond was completely embarrassed in that Thursday night game where he got juked by Jaxson Dart. He got run over by Cam Skattebo more than once, I want to say. And so you don't think that Bond was out for blood, especially considering what Saquon said after the game, where he's sitting there and going, well, we saw how the Giants celebrated after they beat us in week 6 in that Thursday night game, and so we kept it in our memory bank, in our back pocket for this game. And it's like, okay. You don't think Zach Bond was riled up and pissed off about how he played or how things panned out in that Thursday night game and didn't want to get some kind of revenge? Maybe not. Didn't say it out loud, but subconsciously, that has to be in the back of your head. So anyway, K60 says, I understand that some calls don't go your way, but not all, and not all should be this impactful. The Giants defense abdicated at the end, may not have had it been somewhat close. Call it sour grapes, call it whining. I don't care and won't respond if you do. So yeah, I mean, again, this is not a situation where it's just Giants fans like being nitpicky about how, we lost, and so now let's point at the officials and blame them for the loss. The officials do deserve a healthy share of the blame for this game not being as competitive as it could have been. I'll say that. Like referees should not be determining outcomes. Like huge penalty after huge penalty, huge missed call after huge missed call. Like the referee should not be a factor in this kind of game, especially when the division was not as cut and dry as it is now. Like, you look at the NFC East and it's like Commanders are kind of struggling. Cowboys are, here and there, like doesn't look like a playoff team. And the Eagles being average to below average, or at least not where we thought they would be when compared to last season. Like it felt like there's an opportunity there. You see kind of a path to get maybe even a division title. But, you lose to the Cowboys, you lose to the Broncos, you lose to the Saints. And, that path is like, a lot tougher. Again, until we're officially eliminated from playoff contention, I'll still have this like glimpse of hope because I'm weird like that. But Rational Giants takes at Rational G-Men fan said this game would literally be 24-20 without the referees, directly causing a 14-point swing. With how much the NFL shoves DraftKings down our throats, it sure makes you wonder. Maximum punishment for anybody threatening the integrity of the game. Investigate. You had people tagging the FBI on social media. It got out of hand. But here's the one that, you'll have Giants fans going nuts, right? But here's one that sticks out, and I've seen it from multiple other people that are well respected within the NFL community. Tony Dungy. Tony Dungy said on X, the NFL must get rid of these categories that are non-reviewable. Agreed. You can't have New York jumping and changing plays saying expedited review told us, and then have obvious misses that go unchanged. That's what the review process was put in for. We had a couple on the Green Bay, the Steelers Packers game, and it's terrible. When you change some obvious plays and not others, you create a credibility issue, and that's what we have now. And given what happened in the NBA with the whole gambling and cheating scandal that's going on there, where games appear to be fixed, players throwing games, how do you not have? I mean, the timing on this could not have been worse for the NFL, because the NBA is like, that was the biggest news in sports this past week, was the NBA cheating scandal, and for this, and then to follow it up with this, not just this game, but like Dungy said, the Steelers Packers game was not great, if not well officiated, and I think for the most part in 2025 the referees have been really bad. So how is that possible when you have a booth on site and New York looking at these plays? What is that conversation like? Is it like, well, we can't have our referees look bad because then people will question the integrity of the game? But you know what looks worse? When you have even more people looking at it and reviewing it and still not pointing it out. Yet you have everyone watching the game pointing it out. Just none of us have the power to change and call and change the call on the field. So it's just even Chris Collinsworth in that Steelers Packers game was like, please, to the rules analyst, and I'm sorry, I think it's Dean. It's not Dean Blandino, because believe he's Fox. I forget who does the NBC rules analysis, but for Collinsworth, this guy's like NFL Hall of Fame player, lengthy, long career playing, broadcasting, PFF. Like, this guy feels like he should know football in and out. And he was like, so what is the difference between a review assist and review? Like, he was confused. And I was surprised and shocked by the rules analyst's answer. He was like, well, if it's a clear and obvious error like this, New York will call. And it's like, where was that phone call in the Giants game? Repeatedly. All right, so let's take a look at the Giants offense versus the Eagles defense. So on the touchdown drive, this came towards the end of the first quarter. We had a 3rd and 8 at the midfield, and Dart scrambles right end for 8 yards, the first down. Again, I think Dart has proven himself time and time again. Like, when we're in 3rd down, can you remember a time, like, it wasn't so long ago that 3rd and 8 was a death knell for this friggin' team on offense. It was just like, anything more than 3rd and 3 or 4, it's like, all right, we're not converting here. But with Dart, it feels like you can convert anything. It's really nice to at least have that part of my fandom be taken care of. Like, I don't have to worry so much about red zone or 3rd down anymore. And then 2nd and 5 from the Philly 37, Dart passes complete, short left to Darius Slayton for 19 yards. This was like a signature Darius Slayton catch and run, where it's like, catch is kind of iffy. But then he can catch it, and then all of a sudden it's like he can get another 5 to 10 yards, and it's effortless, flawless. And that's why I stuck with Slayton for so long, because I was like, well, the drops feel fixable, right? Aren't drops fixable? Shouldn't they be fixable? It's just don't drop the ball. But no, just has proven. I mean, he led the team in targets, not in catches. The success rate is just not there. The catch rate is just not there. It sucks, because I feel like he has the physical ability to be a wide receiver 1, and he's not even a wide receiver 2 at this point. It sucks. It just sucks, because I believed in him. I think a lot of people did, but this season has proven to a lot of people, and it's unfortunate too, because it's the first of 3 seasons. We owe him $16 million next year. Ay. So we got the 1st and 10 after the Slayton catch from Philly 18, and that's where Dart hits Skattebo for the 18-yard touchdown. What a amazing route by Scat on that one. And I think that let the Philadelphia crowd know, an Eagles team like, no, this is not going to be how it usually goes in Philly. Of course, it ended up being like that at the end. But I think if Skattebo isn't injured in the second quarter, this game is a hell of a lot closer. Skattebo, who entered Week 8 leading all NFL rookies in scrimmage yards and touchdowns, scored through the air for the second consecutive week on an 18-yard catch and run. That ties the game with a little under 3 minutes left in the first quarter. And then, of course, in the second quarter, we lost him to the dislocated ankle. NY Giants Rush on X said, looks like Bond's move appeared to be a hip drop tackle, but it wasn't called on the field, and he will be fined. The bigger question is, if the New York office is communicating with the on-field refs, how do they miss so many calls? I know, right? Giants videos at SNY Giants on X said, after he got hurt, he's the one actually yelling from the cart, let's effing go, let's do this, let's do it. And that's the kind of guy that Scat is, and it's going to be sorely missed. Will he still be, I imagine he's the kind of guy that will still be visible and present at practice, in the locker room, in the clubhouse, maybe even on the sidelines. And I hope he does keep that up, because, you have a guy like Jameis Winston, who's kind of a glue guy and positive and has been a mentor to a lot of the younger guys. As much as people hate Russell Wilson, he's to a lesser degree kind of like that, where he is supportive. It might be kind of a facade, but at least he's still, even after being benched, still trying to be that supportive, positive influence. And I hope Cam can continue to do that, and still have somewhat of an impact on how the Giants are viewing this season and how they play out the season. Dan Schneier at Dan Schneier NFL from the Big Blue Banter podcast said, still devastated about the Cam Skattebo injury. The dude scored 7 touchdowns in 8 games, barely playing in week 1, and the Giants haven't had a touchdown score like that since 2018. Saquon was starting to really come into his own as a receiving weapon, and specifically red zone can't replace this. Yeah. I love Tyrone Tracy, but and we've talked about this. We keep saying, oh, he's a former wide receiver, as if that's going to be a plus. But it turns out that, the reason why he's not a receiver anymore is because he's not excelling in the receiving game. And if anything, Devin Singletary is more of a better target if you're going to look at running back as receiver. So, yeah. Like I said, huge loss. It's like maybe you can get away with losing neighbors, and we did. Our point totals didn't suffer after losing neighbors. They will suffer without Skattebo. The podcast we don't mention anymore, but it rhymes with Balkan Lions. Said, every run of Cam Skattebo of 10 or more yards from weeks 3 to 7, Skattebo was, I almost had an aneurysm trying to read this. From weeks 3 to 7, Cam Skattebo was tied for 9th in the most runs of 10 or more yards and was 11th in rushing yards. 45% of his yards have come after contact. And that's what you lose. I mean, you lose so much. We've already hit on a lot of it, but it's the fact that how many times has Cam carried the ball, caught the ball, is getting the extra yards to get the first down or to get the touchdown. And you are losing that now. I don't even know what this alarm is, but you should record in a quiet environment. Good luck finding that. Monty at Monte Cristo on X said, Cam Skattebo finishes his season as the 5th highest graded Pro Football Focus running back at 80.5. And of all NFL rookie backs, Cam Skattebo heading into week 8 was 3rd in rushing yards at 398, 1st in receiving yards, 1st in total yards. At Sleeper Giants said Malik Neighbors still hasn't had surgery for his torn ACL injury that he suffered on September 28th per Jordan Raynon. Meanwhile, Cam Skattebo got surgery in Philly. Night of. And he even texted Brian Dable at 4 a.m. saying spirits are good. Big Dom visited. This is crazy. Big Dom, the head of security who went viral for the Eagles, stopped in and visited with pizza and cheesesteaks, which was nice. And the Eagles fan base at the stadium was also giving a standing ovation as Cam Skattebo came off the field. So a rare class act from the Philadelphia Eagles when this happened. I don't even know what this alarm is, but it's driving me nuts. It sucks. I hope that people can't hear this on the fucking podcast. So it's wild that Malik Neighbors has not had surgery yet. That drives me crazy. The same thing happened with Daniel Jones too when he tore his ACL. It's like, why are we taking so long? Like, aren't we a very rich organization? And isn't this a wealthy player? And like, why can't we fast track this shit? But I guess with Neighbors, it's not as well. I don't know that this is life threatening, but I guess it's more severe and more time sensitive, and so that's why Scat got the surgery. But if we're going by timelines, recoveries, and whatnot, it seems like Scat would be back before Neighbors now, which is nuts to think considering it's a full month later than what happened to Leak. So after Scat goes out, it's the Tyrone Tracy show. He goes right tackle for 6 yards on 1st and 10 from the Giants 34. He goes left tackle for 6 yards on 2nd and 4. And then you have the pass complete from Dart to Belly for 21 yards. And that's with 5 minutes left in the half on a 1st and 10 from the Giants 46. So now we're in Eagles territory. 1st and 10 from the Philly 33. Dart takes it left tackle for 6 yards. And then on a 3rd and 6 with 3 minutes left at the Philly 29, Dart, that's where Dart throws the ball, an absolute pinpoint precise laser right in Theo Johnson's hands. And he's unable to come up with it. And then he takes a big hit. I'm surprised he didn't get hurt on that. So that to me is where, missed opportunity. We ended up settling for a field goal there, but like Theo catches it. I know you don't have Scat at that point, but if you're able to tie the game up 14-14, just feels different. Feels like, that's a momentum thing where that could have been huge. So instead it's 14-10. We then fast forward to the third quarter. It's now 24-10. We're at the Philly 41. It's 3rd and 7, under 2 minutes to in the quarter. And Dart hits Devin Singletary down the left, deep left. He beat Nakobe Dean. But this is one of those plays where Dart's going to get criticized, and rightfully so. Not a great throw. Right decision, bad placement. If he leads Singletary on the run, odds are I think he scores. If not scores, he gets deep into the red zone, and you got to feel good about your chances punching it in with Dart. But bad throw, great catch by Motor, and that's another missed opportunity. The Dart fumble's overturned, which... if they called it a fumble, I would have been like, okay, fine. So it gives us new life. And then that's when on 4th and 11, we get the Slayton OPI, offensive pass interference. Holy shit. Darius Slayton has a $16 million cap hit in 2025. If the Giants cut Darius Slayton this offseason, we'll only save $250,000, and the dead cap hit will be $15.7 million. Marshall Green called it the Joe Shane special. So the decision-making, the inconsistency, and it comes from a first-time head coach. It comes from a first-time GM. Just not being consistent in the way that you're evaluating players and rewarding players or not rewarding players. And not having a good idea of how players are viewing their tenure with the Giants and how they see their future with the Giants, and just like lack of moves at the trade deadline, lack of re-signings, but then you're re-signing Graham, like you don't cut Graham Gano, you sign Darius Slayton to a big contract, but then like what have you done offensively to cater to Slayton's strengths to like allow him to be a good wide receiver 2 and potentially a wide receiver 1 when Malik Neighbors gets hurt? It's wild. And like I said, they're not learning. They're just not learning. So, we only had 9 drives, 8 really, because we took a bunch of knees at the end of the first half. But, touchdown, field goal, touchdown. If we talked about the missed opportunity in that second quarter, the missed opportunity in the third quarter on those drives that looked good, ate up some time on the clock, to go 15 plays, 59 net yards, take off almost 7 minutes off the clock in the third quarter and end up with a field goal. Barf. You know what I mean? You get a touchdown there. You get a touchdown on that drive in the second quarter. You're looking at it's now 28 points. You take, does the defense decide to give up towards the end? And you have the officiating go your way. This could have easily been a win. I know it sounds nuts considering how poorly the defense played, but it's not out of the realm of possibilities. Especially you're coming off a game in which you were up by 19 in the fourth quarter, and then you were up by 18, and then you were up. And then you blew it. That just goes to show the game's not over. It's never over. So, to be down by 11, that didn't feel like it was out of reach, and then you make it 31-13. It's all right. Dart was 14-24, 193 yards and a touchdown, rushed for his fourth touchdown of the year. If you were to tack on the 68 yards touchdown that was called back on the Slayton OPI, that add another 68 to his total, add another 35 to 50 yards and dropped passes on some big time throws, and you're looking at he could have been in the high 250 plus in the passing yards. The guy is, I know it's beating a dead horse, broken record at this point, but he's got it, man. He is it. So excited to have him on the team. Just need to make sure that we don't ruin him, and Dable is ruining him already. I mean, the fact that in a game that is so over, and I know 31-13, it's 18-point difference, but it's 3 minutes left. I think that's where the difference is. I know, it's Neal, you just said we were up 18 or 19 in the fourth quarter against the Broncos and lost. So how are we're down 18 against the Eagles in the fourth quarter in Philly, and you're not advocating for us to try to win the game? No, that's not it. But to have two back-to-back design runs when you're down that many points, when I don't think anyone would be too butthurt if you pulled Dart in that situation, you're risking injury, especially on that first run where it's the linebacker crashes and comes in low, and it's that could have been a knee. And then you're looking at if he got hurt, you want to see a fan base completely tune out and home games just be an absolute shit show in terms of other fans in the stands, half empty stadiums, planes. Yeah, full blown. People are just nope, get him next year. Doug Analytics at Doug_Analytics on X said, Jaxson Dart's performance. I know the numbers are not going to jump off the page, and it's going to be not his best game, but plus 0.19 expected points added per play. He was in the 68th percentile. 43% success rate, and a plus 1.9% completed pass over expectancy. So that was something that was not as good last week in a game against the Broncos, a defense that was awesome, and we all thought Dart played awesome. He had the much lower CPOE. Big Blue Film Room said Jaxson Dart posted an 81.1 PFF grade versus the Eagles. WBG 84 said Jaxson Dart is the first rookie quarterback in NFL history with 8 or more touchdown passes, 4 or more rushing touchdowns through their first 5 career starts. Giants Nation show at Giants Nation Pod with Bobby Skinner and the Football Grump posted this on X. Offensive rankings with Jaxson Dart. Scoring offense is now 16th at 24.2 points per game. And I know for most franchises, that would be an off year or a bad year. For us, it's a banner year. Passing offense is only 185.6 yards per game, which is 27th. But our rushing offense is 131.2 yards per game, which is 9th best with Dart as starter. And our expected points added per play is 0.044, which is 14th. So we're, about an average offense. And that's without Neighbors. It's going to be without Skattebo, unfortunately. So I think the numbers might not be as great as they have been with Skattebo, but still encouraging. Sleeper Giants said Jaxson Dart is the only quarterback in the Super Bowl era with 8 or more passing touchdowns, 4 or more rushing touchdowns, and fewer than 5 giveaways in his first 5 career starts. That comes from at Front Office NFL. And he had a 98.1 rating. Not bad. Tracy finishes with 39 yards on 10 carries. He had 3 targets, only 6 catches, 3 targets, 2 catches, 14 yards. And Wandale had 3 catches on 4 targets, 48 yards. Singletary with the lone catch down the sideline. But here we go again. Darius Slayton, 5 targets, led the team, 2 catches, 26 yards with a long of 19. His other catch came on that comeback route where Dart somehow escapes the rush, buys time, and then throws it. It was only like a 6 or 7 yard game, but goddamn, it was one of the most entertaining and electric 6 or 7 yard passes these eyes done ever seen. Belly only had the 1 catch for 21 yards. Theo gets 3 catches on 4 targets for 20 yards. Of course, the 1 drop was the big one. He did have 2 really big third down conversions where Dart, scrambles, gets in the ball, and Theo fights for that extra yards to get the first down on both occasions. So good, but I'd still like to see Bellinger be a bigger part of the passing attack. Zach Bond had 2 passes defended for the Eagles and a sack, 6 combined tackles, 2 tackles for loss. Jalix Hunt had a sack. And Moro Ojomo had a sack. Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis each had a sack. For the Eagles, Joshua Uche and Quinion Mitchell each had a pass defended. So Cooper DeJean had 6 combined tackles. Reed Blankenship 5 combined tackles. N'Kobe Dean 5 combined tackles. That's the Giants offense. Giants defense versus the Eagles offense. Again, no Adebo, no Holland, no Chauncey Golston. Kind of an underrated absentee from the game. Talked about Flott getting ruled out with a concussion because Bobby O clocked him in the jaw. On the second play for scrimmage, Saquon rushes for the 65-yard touchdown run there. Not the start you're looking for. And it's because Newbin wasn't aggressive. I think everyone is pretty much in agreement that Newbin has taken a major step back this season, is catching a lot of heat to the point now where people are calling for us to pursue someone in free agency or draft someone to replace him. It's like, it feels a bit premature. Feels like if you just get another defensive coordinator in the building who knows how to utilize him better, maybe you won't kind of see this output. But, 1st and 20 from the Philly 38, 10 minutes left in the first. Eagles are up by 7. Saquon goes left tackle for 8 yards. You then have a 2nd and 12 from the Philly 46, and Hurts completes the pass to Barkley for 12 yards. First down. Not even getting to third down. You have the 4th and 3, where I believe this is the play where, we talk about how Dexter Lawrence has been double teamed, one of the most double teamed players in the NFL, where he's facing a lot of double teams at a higher rate than a lot of other interior defensive linemen. This was a case where he was not double teamed and he's going up against a backup center and he was not able to win that battle. So major hole. And is it on Dexter for not plugging that hole and being responsible for his gap? Or is it on whoever was to his right not coming up? Or is it, why don't we have a spy on Hurts? That's another big question that I don't know the answer to. And so there's a massive hole that Hurts is able to scramble and slide and get the first down. Start of the second quarter, you had the 1st and 15 from the Giants 46. Scores tied 7-7. And Hurts completes the pass to Devontae Smith for 26 yards on Cordell Flott. Again, 1st and 15. What the fuck? We give up a first down. Then you have that 4th and 1 tush push fumble that wasn't called. 3rd and 7 from the Philly 16. This is where we got the sack from Dexter Lawrence and Darius Alexander. It's not going to show up on the stat sheet, but Abdul Carter was primarily responsible for that sack, and I feel like he's been responsible for a bunch of sacks by other Giants players this season. And people are just daydreaming and fantasizing about what if we had Wink Martindale, how many sacks would Abdul Carter have? Fun to think about, but also very painful. This is where you know, we thought the Giants were getting better at this, and it turns out this is like old Giants, and by old Giants I mean like 2023, 2024, even 2022 under Brian Dable. The middle 8, where it's like the last 4 of the first half, first 4 of the second half. First and 10, a little under 3 minutes left in the first half. Eagles have the ball at their own 42. It's 14-10. Barkley goes right in for 10 yards. First and 10 at the Giants 48. Barkley goes left end for 6 yards. Second and 4 from the Giants 42. Barkley goes right tackle for 5 yards. First and 10 from the Giants 37. Hurts completes it short right to Smith for 11 yards, tackled by Muasau and Flott. I believe that is the play that Flott got injured on. If it wasn't that one, then it was the next one where first and 10 from the Giants for 26. Hurts passes complete to Smith, tackled by Bobby Okereke. And then under a minute to go at the Giants 14, Hurts completes it to Barkley for 3 yards. Second and 7 from the Giants 11. That's where you have the bogus neutral zone infraction that should have been a false start on Mailata. Barkley, and that's when Eagles score the touchdown to make it 21-10 at half. If you hold them to a field goal there, it's 17-10. You get the ball back, you get the ball to start the second half. Is your mindset different? Do you feel better about your chances? I know it's only 4-point difference, but Jesus, it just feels like your outlook is different. I don't know. You feel like, all right, defense came up big and held strong. Now it's the offense's turn. It's like, well, the defense didn't come up big. It's now 21-10, and we're out without Cam Skattebo. It's like, oh, fuck. Again, is that the situation where what was the coach? We talked about what was the coach's message when Skattebo had the fumble in the Saints game that was returned for a touchdown, where it's a multi-score deficit, but it's still early enough in the fourth quarter where you're still in the game, you're still in contention. You can still come back and win. What were the coaches doing at that point? What was their message? What was the message at halftime when you were so close to tying up the game? You set up for the field goal. It's 14-10. Then your defense allows the Eagles to go down and score the touchdown. What was Dable saying to the team? What was Bowen saying to the defense? Because I just don't think it translated in the second half. We came out in the second half and just like rolled over. Barkley ran for 150 yards, recorded 24 more receiving yards through the air. Ran for a touchdown, caught a touchdown instead of 14-14 or 14-17 in the first half. 21-10, yeah. Then you had in the third quarter, 3rd and 11, we're down 21-10 at the Giants 40. Big down here, right? If you stop them on a pass, it's incomplete. That's a 57-yard field goal. You've already seen Jake Elliott go out there and doink a 58-yarder. He hasn't been exactly perfect this season. I know he's always had a history of just crushing the Giants in the past, but like he doinked the 58-yarder. It feels like maybe he's not got it today. So, would the Eagles have gone for it on 4th and 11? I do think, though, if they had completed a pass underneath and it was 4th and 5, 4th and 4, they'd go for it. But would the Eagles have punted there? I don't think they would have punted at 4th and 11 from the Giants 40. And so you probably would still have a field goal there. So I don't know that it's that big a difference, but you never know. This is the DPI on Corey Black that was suspect. And then that gives them a first down, 14-yard, puts them first down. They're now in the new Giants 26, something like that. And then in the fourth quarter, you have a second. This is the one that drives Giants fans up a fucking wall. It's the kind of plays like this that are reminiscent of what happened in 2017 when the defense just flat out gave up and was just quitting in game. That Rams game stands out to me in 2017 where it's like the Rams were scoring 50 some odd points and guys, it was like 3rd and forever and we're just letting the guy run, not making an attempt at a tackle. 2nd and 26 from the Philly 40. There's the fourth quarter has just started, 14 minutes left in the game. It's 24-13, okay? We're down by 11, all right? Game is still, feels like we're still kind of hanging around. Like, as much as the Eagles have dominated, like, we're still kind of hanging around. We're still in this game. It's a 2-score game. Field goal, touchdown, 2-pointer. Like, it's a tie game. It doesn't feel like it's crazy to think about, Dart coming up big. He's come up big for the most part, most of his short tenure so far. And Tank Bigsby goes right end for 29 fucking yards. And that was like, okay, game over. Like, when we can't stop someone on 20 and second and 26, dude, forget about it. It's like, no matter what the fucking offense does, we cannot rely on this defense to come up big. I mean, there's been one game where we've asked them where they have proven themselves in big situations and made stops that I can think of. One game so far in 2025. And of course, the Eagles ended up scoring a touchdown on that. And then the absolute final nail in the coffin, Hurts going deep left to Jahan Dotson for 4 yards on against, I believe, Corey Black. 3rd and 6 from the Giants' 40. Great play by Dotson. Fairly decent coverage from Corey Black. I mean, he's a 7th rounder that was cut and brought back this week. So, asking a lot out of the guy. And Dotson made a great play. Decent throw by Hurts to give Dotson a chance. And that was with 6 minutes left in the game. So it's now, at that point, it's 38-13. 6 minutes left. You're down by 25. Why is Dart in the game? Why are we doing design runs with him? I don't know. But Tank Bigsby added 104 rushing yards. We allowed, our Giants rush defense allowed 9.3 yards per attempt. Why throw the ball? And this has been a question that I've asked the Eagles for years and years. Whenever the Giants are like hanging around and making it close and competitive, why don't they just run the fucking ball? Because we have yet to prove, other than I guess that first Thursday night game, that we're just not able to stop the run. And the Eagles rush offense, when we did the preview, we said this team cannot run the ball like they used to. They had one of the lowest rushing yards per attempt in the league. Saquon's having a really down year, and then he just goes off and explodes. So maybe this is the turning point for the Eagles offense. I don't know, but I'd be more inclined to say that it's just the Giants defense blows. Giants Daily on X said allowing Tank Bigsby to pick up a first down on 2nd and 31 is a combination of bad coaching and bad players. Always remind myself how the Giants run a soft and weak training camp and how it's always noticeable during games. Poor tackling, bad angles, coaches and players suck. Yeah. There was another post I saw. I don't know if it was from Jordan Raynon or what, but that it's often referred to as country club style practices in training camps, where it's just very player friendly. Dable's a player's coach, and that's most likely why he's getting, when we talked about the offseason grades, I was surprised that Dable got a B grade from Giants players, the anonymous survey that they do. I was like, that's wild, because this guy it seems like he just doesn't, I don't know. I thought he lost the locker room last year, especially during that Buccaneers game where we got blown out. And I don't know. I guess the players do actually like him, but maybe just have some tougher practices and tougher training camps, because I forget which team has the tougher practices. I think it's the Broncos with Sean Payton, and you were able to see what happened in that fourth quarter, where it's like, oh, the Giants are gassed, and the Giants are taking bad angles and bad tackling and all that shit on defense, and but the Broncos finished strong. So in my head, I know it's a very black and white way to think, but let's have tougher practices. Let's have tougher training camps, which is weird because when you think about what Dable's first training camp, he's like, I'm going to test Daniel Jones. You have not really heard that or seen that, as far as I can tell, from anyone in the media, nationally or local, saying that Dable's doing any kind of thing like that since then. I can't stand soft, weak. And that's why I liked Wink Martindale so much. It's like, if we're going to lose, let's fucking lose aggressively. Let's blitz, zero coverage, cover one, cover zero type shit. Let's blitz. Let's be aggressive. Eagles scored on every single drive except 2. One is just victory formation, taking the knee towards the end, where I think they were in Giants territory at that point. And then they did have the one punt, the 3-and-out punt in the second quarter, halfway through the second quarter, where I think that was right before Scat got hurt. But really poor showing from them. I mean, every single drive was more than 54 yards, just about, other than the missed field goal drive, the 3-and-out, and the end of the game. So Doug Analytics said on X, the Giants defense forces the most series with a first or second and 11 or more yards. Great, which I mentioned before. And then he said the Giants allow the highest rate of those series to convert to a new first down. Not so great. Bobby Skinner said Giants defensive series when a first or second and 11 or more is created. 25 of 35 opportunities are converted into first downs. That is out of control, dude. 69 plays for 600 yards, including penalties. 8.7 yards per play allowed. 25 of 35 times where the Giants defense had the opposing offense in first or second down 11 or more yards, and the other team got a first down. Oof. I would expect a lot of decisions to be made during the bye week. It just feels like that's where things are going to happen. If it does happen in season, it's like, all right, we got 4 games left. We're already out of the playoffs. Peace out, Dable. Peace out, Bone. And let's see what we can do. Marshall Green at Marshall Green _ on X said Shane Bowen's defense can't stop the run, create turnovers, or close out games. What can they do? WBG84 said Giants defense under Shane Bowen in a 25-game span. 631 points allowed. 5,448 passing yards allowed. More than 3,500 rushing yards allowed. 5.65 yards allowed per play. 64 sacks, 20 takeaways. We know how talented their pass rush is, but everything else is bad. A new direction and an overhaul is needed. Doug Analytics added, there have been 7 plays this season where an offense ran the ball with 26 or more yards to go for a first down. Only 2 of those were successful by expected points added. Both were against the Giants defense. Jalen Hurts, who had a perfect 158.3 passer rating last week at Minnesota. Yeah, he had a phenomenal game against Minnesota. One of his best games as a pro. He posted a 141.5 rating on Sunday against the Giants with 4 touchdowns. Doug Analytics also added the Giants defense played an even mix of man and zone coverage versus Jalen Hurts. Against man coverage, Jalen Hurts was 9 of 10 for 126 yards and 4 touchdowns with a plus 1.55 expected points added per pass and an average depth of completion of 9.6 yards. His stats against zone coverage, 6 of 10, 53 yards, minus 0.15 expected points added per pass, and a 3.1 yards average depth of completion. We attributed the success the Giants defense had against Jalen Hurts in the Thursday night game, week 6, was because we were playing zone. When we were playing man, we were getting smoked and crushed. Big gainers to Goddard, big gainers to Smith, et cetera, to Brown. When we switched to zone, predominantly zone, you saw Hurts stand back there and stand back there and stand back there and just not find anyone and either have to scramble and not pick up the first down or throw underneath and guys converge. Why didn't we do that? Again, why did we do 50-50 man and zone? Why not just do 75-25 zone to man? Like, is it because we had so many injuries and you had more confidence in your backups to play man versus playing zone? And you felt like you were going to get gashed by Hurts having, the Art Greens and Nick Jones and Bo Braids and like the backups playing zone. And you feel like Deonte Banks, who played 100% of the defensive snaps, is better in man. Again, why wouldn't you just say to yourself, okay, well, 2023 Deonte Banks man coverage, okay. 2025 man in coverage with Deonte Banks, nah, not so much. But again, like, what you just had success calling zone against Hurts in week 6. Why didn't you just run it back? What the fuck? Shane Bowen? Sal, who is so back again, at Queens underscore guy on X, said Giants defense has given up 71 points in 5 quarters. Shout out to at Kurt1124. This was the unit that got all the investments. It was supposed to be the backbone of the team. How is Shane Bowen still employed? Great question. 71 points in 5 quarters. WBG84 said Tyler Nubin's calling card in college was ball skills. He had 13 picks at the University of Minnesota. He has yet to pick off a pass in 21 games with the Giants. Ugh. Big Blue Film Room said Dexter Lawrence posted a 47.6 PFF grade on Sunday. Barf. They also added that Dexter Lawrence has just 7 pressures and 0 sacks on 209 pass rushes, a career low 3.3% pressure rate per Next Gen Stats. Nick Filato added, through 8 games, Dexter Lawrence has 16 pressures. Roy Robertson Harris has 9 pressures on 104 fewer PR snaps, pass rush snaps. Oof. Dexter, dude. This is the stat I mentioned before. Big Blue Film Room said that nobody has been double teamed in the league more than Dexter Lawrence. 61.2% of pass rushes per Next Gen Stats. It's the second straight season in which he's led the NFL in this category. But as I mentioned, you had a couple of opportunities where you're going up against a backup offensive lineman and you're unable to generate any kind of pressure or movement. And Carl Banks took him to task on the Believe podcast, Bob Papa, where he basically said that, called him out big time and just said, Dexter, nobody respects you. You are not the pre-injury Dexter Lawrence that opposing offenses would fear and opposing offensive linemen would, have nightmares about. That's just not you this year. And he said, I'm not going to pretend to know what's going on with you. I'm not going to speculate, but, you have to feel like that elbow. And at this point, we're all just thinking, oh, it's the elbow injury. But I think it's also the elbow injury combined with he is acting and behaving in these interviews like Saquon Barkley was acting and behaving in the interviews in 2023, which leads me to believe, like I watched the Talkin' Ball podcast with Pat Leonard, when he did the post-game live stream. He talks about Dexter Lawrence, how he's behaving and acting and what he's saying in post-game interviews. And someone asked, do you think the Giants will trade Dexter Lawrence? Which initially you're like, oh, that's a preposterous question. There's no way that the Giants would trade Dexter Lawrence. But it's like, maybe he requests a trade. It's like the Giants don't want to trade him. And I'm sure if he requests a trade, they probably don't want to trade him because the moment you trade Dexter Lawrence, you want to talk about Giants fan base revolting. Everyone's going to go to the closet, pick out their best pitchfork, and get their most flammable torch and just march to East Rutherford. So it would be extremely unpopular with fans. And seeing how they treated Saquon when Saquon requested the trade, it's like I just don't see them dealing Dexter Lawrence. But it might be a case of Dexter just I think Saquon was polite about it. I don't think Dexter's going to be polite about it. I think he's going to be like, you fucking trade me right now or I put you through that window. But yeah, when Carl Banks is calling you out, because Carl can be a bit of I don't know if apologist is the right word, but like he has been defending Shane Bowen more than anyone. Not to say that he doesn't think that Shane Bowen should be fired, but anytime someone asks Carl about it or says Shane Bowen needs to be fired to Carl, he's like, yeah, but look at how the players are playing. Like the players are not, and it's like, Carl, dude, the players are not playing the right way because they don't respect and like their coach, the defensive coordinator. So I don't know. Carl's old school, and he, I do appreciate that he's not that kind of groupthink type personality where it's like, just because everyone's saying this one thing doesn't mean it's necessarily true. Let's actually look at the tape. Let's actually break it down. But, him calling out Dexter Lawrence, I'm fine with, because you're just not seeing the domination that you're used to seeing. And I think it's a combination of the elbow injury, and I think it's a combination of he's just sick and tired and exhausted by this coaching staff. And it's just like, it doesn't matter if I give 110%. It doesn't matter if I am able to step up and make a play here or there. We're going to lose the game because we don't have the right coaches in place. So Monty at Monte Cristo on X said, Kayvon Thibodeau had the highest grade on the Giants in Week 8 with an 85.3 and a 93.2 run defense grade. So I guess the 85.3 overall grade and a 93.2 run defense grade. All that with what should have been a forced fumble that would have at least kept us in the game a little bit longer, possibly swayed momentum. So, and that's been kind of I don't want to say a bugaboo, but it's been a shortcoming for Kayvon over his short career with the Giants. Is like he hasn't been great in the run defense. This one he was, for the most part, pretty good. You just wish that the pass rush element was a little bit better. And I saw another post, I don't know if I have it down here, but someone saying, Abdul Carter is not going to be what we want him to be with Kayvon Thibodeau on the team. So it's like we're in this weird predicament where it's like Kayvon's playing better overall. He's still not quite doing what we want him to do from a pass rushing standpoint. Abdul Carter is getting snaps taken away by Kayvon Thibodeau. It's like rocking a hard place. People are like, we got to re-sign Kayvon Thibodeau. Newsflash, you re-sign Kayvon Thibodeau, the new defensive coordinator is going to have to figure out something where we can get Abdul Carter and Kayvon and Burns and Dexter on the field at the same time. And we know we have better success when all four of them are on the field, but you can't have them all four on the field every snap. Even Dexter's snap count wasn't great this game. I think he played like 60% or something like that. So, Hurts' numbers don't jump off the page. 15 to 20, 179 yards, but he had the 4 touchdowns, 141.5 rating, like we said. Saquon, 14 carries, 150 yards and a touch. 9 carries, 140 yards for fucking Tank Bixby. Unreal. Devontae Smith was the leading receiver. 6 catches on 9 targets, 84 yards. Goddard only had 3 catches, but it was 3 targets, 3 catches, 2 touchdowns. Dotson only had the 1 catch, which is a touchdown. So very efficient from the Eagles offense. Bobbio had the sack and 8 combined tackles, 7 of which were solo. Burns had a sack, 4 combined tackles, and a QB hit. Nacho had a sack. Dex and Darius combined for a sack. Man, it would be nice if Dex and Darius was a thing. I think that was the hope, was like Darius is going to come in. He's going to be the starter. He's going to play the bulk of the snaps next to Dexter. Dexter's going to take him under his wing. It's just like, you start to have delusions of grandeur about how things are going to work out between these two guys, and it hasn't really gotten to that place yet. Darius is playing better, but still not seeing a ton of snaps on the field. And Dexter obviously not where we want him to be. So, but Dexter and Darius, right? That was like the hope. And I don't know that we're going to get to that place this season. And if Dexter really is that disgruntled, is the front office going to can the front office sell him on the fact that they're going to get the coaching decision right once they move on from Dable and the crew that they have now? You take a look at like Myles Garrett, right, against the Patriots. He sets a franchise record with 5 sacks, and they still get blown out. And he's throwing his helmet on the sideline. And I think Jared Allen called him out on the Kay Adams show. It was just like, dude, you took the money. You knew exactly what you were getting into. You took the money, so you can't be reacting like this. And it's like, and see Jared's point. It was a money decision because, you remember back before that contract got hammered out, it was surprising that they actually were able to get that done, because it seemed like Myles Garrett wanted out. I believe he requested a trade. All signs were pointing to him moving on. Everyone's like, all right, who are the top landing spots for Myles Garrett? Because we know he's not going to return to the Browns. And of course he does on a monster contract. From my standpoint, I would ask Jared Allen, so how would you want him to respond? Like, not have that emotion, not be frustrated? Would you rather have him throw down his helmet in anger and be pissed off about how the team is underperforming? Or would you rather him do what Dexter Lawrence has been doing, where it's just like staring down reporters who are asking him legitimate questions in post-game scrums? It's like, I don't know. Dexter is a captain, but I'm not crazy about the way that he's handling things and responding, and I don't know who needs to talk to him about what and if that'll change anything, because it seems like maybe he's just a stubborn dude. I would say the defensive leader who deserves the captain is Brian Burns. Kayvon's is a close second. Dexter's like, maybe he's just been here too long. And he's just like, fuck this noise. When I signed the contract extension, I thought things would be different. Dane Belton had 8 combined tackles. Abdul Carter had 5 combined tackles. Newbin 5 combined tackles. Kayvon 5 combined tackles with a pass defended. Newbin with a pass defended. Banks 3 combined tackles. Giants.future at future_Giants said Tyler Newbin has the highest missed tackle rate amongst all starting safeties in the NFL with a 21.2% rate. Yikes. There's a bunch of things you can forgive from a defensive player, but missed tackles is not one of them. Bobby Skinner said Giants, Abdul Carter versus the Eagles led the team with 5 pressures and had a 26.3% pass rush win rate, which is good to see. Just not able to get the hits, the knockdowns, the hurries, the sacks. Sean Marash. All right, so this was in reference to Saquon's post-game quote where he's like, we saw how they celebrated and we kept that in mind and we wanted to stick it to him. Sean Marash quoted Mike Garofalo, who Mike Garofalo, I like him and I kind of don't like him. He's an Eagles fan. He's from Philly. He has said that he is a Philadelphia sports fan. He said he's had to dial back his Eagles fandom because he's in this position with the NFL. And I'm like, yeah, dude. I've seen you interview Eagles players, dude. You are in fucking 7th heaven with them winning. So let's not pretend like you're not an Eagles fan. You are an Eagles fan. Anyway, Mike Garofalo posted, asked Saquon Barkley about the difference in vibes between the Giants game and the first one for the Eagles, and he offered this up. Quote, for sure, we definitely saw how they celebrated when they beat us last time. And so Sean Marash quoted that and said, Saquon was a Giant. He was a freshman at Penn State the last time the Giants won in Philadelphia. He knows better than anyone what the win at MetLife meant to those guys. For him to take this angle is the wrong messenger, man. Can we stop pretending Saquon is Mr. Innocent Nice Guy now? And if you listen to my standalone episode from the podcast where I reviewed the Saquon documentary that was on Prime Video, it's like he thought this would come out and everyone would be like, oh, Saquon's the good guy, Saquon's the hero, and Saquon's this or that. And that was a major motif for the documentary. It was like, am I the hero or the villain? I've been the hero for doing the right things, saying the right things for so long, but maybe I am the villain. And it's time to embrace the villain persona. And yeah, he is a villain for sure. And, it's, and that's fine, but let's not pretend like you were doing and saying the right thing, but expecting something as a result of it. So when you're behaving that way and saying things just because you want something in return, that's not genuine or authentic. That's I don't know. There are plenty of people out there who are super nice, super giving. I don't know how they do it, but positive. And it's not because they want something in return. And people see that and they recognize that and they respect that. And it's like people saw him doing the right thing and saying the right thing, but he didn't like that he wasn't rewarded for it or whatnot. And so that is ultimately what undid his relationship with the Giants. I would hope that the Giants wouldn't forget this game. Wouldn't forget what happened to Cam Skattebo. Wouldn't forget what happened in the Tush Push and the missed calls and the blown calls. And I hope that they are able to retain this and learn from it. The Giants players, the Giants coaches, it's like, well, you're not going to be here next season, so don't worry about it. But the Giants players, maybe specifically Jaxson Dart, maybe even Skattebo, hopefully someone on the defensive side of the ball doesn't forget this and they say, all right, we need to now get back at Zach Bond. And we need to bury Saquon. Let's The rivalry feels like it's a little bit back on now, which I like. You know, this, I know the result is like same old, rinse and repeat, Groundhog Day, everyone's saying. But like that Thursday night win was huge, and it obviously had an effect on an Eagles team that has fucking owned us for like 2 decades. The fact that we beat them and celebrated the way we did impacted how it's just wild. So Eagles now 6-2. They have the number 2 seed in the NFC because they own the head-to-head record against the Buccaneers, who now have the 3 seed at the same record. Seahawks currently are the NFC West leaders at 5-2. They have the 4 seed based on division win percentage. Lions have the 5 seed. They'd be the number 1 wild card based on conference win percentage. The Rams are the 6th seed at 5-2 with the 2nd wild card spot. And the 49ers have the 7th wild card, or 7th seed, 3rd wild card at 5-3. Your Green Bay Packers are leading the NFC North at 5-1. Bears are just a game back, half a game back of that final wild card spot at 4-3. Then you have the Panthers at 4-4. Then the Cowboys at 3-4-1. I don't particularly know what to think about the Falcons, but they're at 3-4. It just feels like they're not going to be able to turn it around, despite there are some games where their defense is like lights out and the offense is hitting on all cylinders. And then they get blown out by the fucking Dolphins. It's like, okay, And then the Commanders are 3-4, as are the Vikings. So that's a look at the NFC playoff hunt. And I bring that up because it's like, hot damn, man. How different this season could have been if we just had a fucking capable coaching staff. You think about, okay, we probably don't win this game, but maybe it's a little more competitive with a friggin' better officials and better coaches, right? So we're still losing this game. The Cowboys game should be a win. The Saints game should be a win. But okay, so say you don't take that out. Cowboys, Broncos. Those are 2 games that you should have won. So instead of 2-6, we should be 4-4, and we would be right there where the Panthers are. And how different would the next 2 weeks be if we're 4-4, not 2-6? How different? Because guess what? We're playing the 49ers at home. 49ers team that doesn't have Fred Warner, has been without Brock Purdy, was without George Kittle. He's back now, without Pearsall. So they're banged up offensively, defensively, a lot of injuries, and they're still managing to win games. But we're going to go over a lot of their statistics, and none of them are like, they're not like, there's nothing that really jumps out at you like, oh, they're just dominating. It's just they're figuring out a way to win. And like I said, if we had the 49ers coaching staff, we would be 4-4 at least. So we have the 49ers coming in, and then we have the Bears. So you could be sitting here after week 8, 4-4, with an opportunity to get the 7 seed in the fucking playoffs, dude. I know people are going to watch this and listen to this and be like, Neal's being so fucking dramatic and it doesn't matter. But Jesus Christ, dude, we didn't think we were going to be in that kind of position this year. We were like, well, lucky if we'll get 5 or 6 wins. Maybe we get to 8 and 9. It's hard to envision 9 and 8 in a playoff spot, but holy shit. With better coaching and a defense that knew how to close out games, we'd be 4-4. Like 4-4, possibly 5-3. And then going into the 49ers and Bears game with a chance to get the 7 seed, knowing that the last 4 games of the season aren't as hard as you originally thought. So, just missed opportunities, blown opportunities, and yeah. So that was a look at the playoff picture in the NFC. Let's take a look at the Giants' upcoming game in Week 9 against the San Francisco 49ers. 49ers are 5-3, coached by Kyle Shanahan. Giants 2-6, coached by DeBall. Game will take place on Sunday, November 2nd at 1 o'clock, MetLife Stadium. Vegas currently has the 49ers favored by 2.5. That's tempting, dude. I might take that. I would take that. I know we're without Scat. I know our defense is in shambles, but it just feels like this is a winnable game. Over-under is 47.5. I honestly think it's going to go over that. I think this is going to be a shootout. And here's why. No. So we'll take a look at the 49ers results so far by a week. The opener against the Seahawks where Purdy gets hurt, but they end up winning 17-13 in Seattle. Special teams was a disaster for the Niners in this game, but their offense came through. Defense was okay. Defense forced 2 turnovers, only surrendered 230 yards. Offense put up almost 400 yards and 119 yards rushing. That was their second best performance from the rushing unit on offense for the Niners. So Purdy's down. Mac Jones steps in. They go to New Orleans. They beat New Orleans 26-21. So, not exactly how you thought that would pan out. A win's a win, but Saints are not expected to do well this year, and the 49ers are expected to be in playoff contention again. Offense played fairly well, not as good as the first game, but still okay. Defense, not so great. Gave up more than 300 yards, but 121 yards on the ground in that 26-21 win in week 2. In week 3, they beat the Cardinals 16-15. Offense did not play well. Defense did not play well. They gave up 106 yards on the ground defensively, no turnovers. The offense turned the ball over once and had the second or third lowest rushing output of the season. But they did get 282 yards through the air. That would be among the tops this season for the offense. So they squeak out a win there against the Cardinals. They then lose to the Jaguars at home, 26-21. Offense okay, defense okay, special teams not great. They gave up surrendered 151 yards on the ground to the Jaguars, and the offense had 4 turnovers, despite putting up 389 total yards and 22 first downs. In the Week 5 game, that's the Thursday night game against the Rams, this one went into overtime. They win 26-23. Defense played the third worst game of the season, but came up big when it mattered. We talked about that. Kyron Williams, looked like he was about to go in for a touchdown, and the defensive lineman comes out of nowhere and punches the ball out to save the game. The offense played spectacular in this game. It was their best performance of the season, led by Mac Jones. Mac Jones took a fucking beating in this game, as he did against the Buccaneers. He just always looks like he's about to crumble and fall apart at the seams. But yeah, overtime win against the Rams, 26-23. Offense puts up over 400 yards, 27 first downs, 333 yards through the air, no turnovers. Defense gave up 456 total yards, 378 through the air, but they did get 2 turnovers. Week 6 game was against the Bucs. I think this was like the America's game of the week, and the Bucs won 30-19. Mac Jones had himself another doozy of an effort here. They only mustered 67 yards on the ground, which I believe was their second lowest output of the season. That was the lowest up to that point, and then ended up being the second lowest after they faced the Texans. But defense allowed 104 rushing yards, 352 total yards, no turnovers. This was the second worst game that the defense had of the 2025 season. It was the worst at that point before they faced the Texans. Next week, 7 against the Falcons. This was the Sunday night game, I believe. They had to follow up the insane circus that was Broncos-Giants, and Niners pull it out 20-10 against the Falcons to move to 5-2. 23 first downs from the offense, 150 passing yards, but 174 rushing yards, which was tops. That's the most by the Niners this season. Defense was pretty good. This was like their second best performance of the season. Only allowed 62 rushing yards to Bijan Robinson. They got a turnover, and they held the Falcons to less than 300 yards of total offense. And then this past game, week 8 game against the Texans in Houston, they lose 26-15. The offense only mustered 12 first downs and 223 rushing total yards, only 48 rushing yards, the lowest of their 2025 season. The defense allowed, this was the defense's worst game of the season so far. 475 total yards surrendered, 23 first downs, 318 through the air, 157 on the ground, and only the one turnover. And Houston was not an offensive juggernaut by any means. They've been underperforming. I mean, they've been getting better, but they've really been underperforming for a long time. They've always had a really good defense, but their offense has struggled. So to see their offense almost eclipse 500 total yards lets you know the state of the union for the 49ers defense. They are not in a good place right now, especially after losing Fred Warner to that season-ending injury. So looking at team conversions, the Niners have the third best third down percentage at 40. They're converting 46.4% of third downs. And converting 54.5% of fourth downs, which is 19th in the league. Their red zone percentage of 52% is 21st in the league. Meanwhile, their defense has the 8th best red zone percentage, but is 22nd in fourth down percentage and 19th in third down percentage. It does not seem, I guess Brock Purdy is like week to week with that turf toe, and he also had, I don't, does he also have plantar fasciitis, or is it just the turf toe? I think it's just the turf toe, but odds are he's probably not playing this game. I would think that the Niners would pass up on throwing him out there against the Giants defense and save him. So we'll probably see Mac Jones, who not the most mobile of quarterbacks. Mac's got almost 1,600 yards passing and 8 touchdowns. So he's played well, and it's a testament to Kyle Shanahan and his staff. The fact that you had Sam Darnold come over in a backup capacity, got a couple starts, and that's where he got his groove back, which allowed him to sign with Minnesota, and then he goes and plays for another great quarterback-friendly coach who is a QB whisperer of sorts, to then go to Seattle, where he's now playing at a Pro Bowl, all-pro level. So is that the future for Mac Jones, where it's like, okay, labeled a bust, went pit stop in Jacksonville, and now he gets to get his groove back with Shanahan and the Niners, and then he's able to go somewhere and become a starter and excel. Christian McCaffrey's having a decent year. I mean, yeah, well over 1,000 total yards from scrimmage. He's the leading receiver on the team with 56 catches, 559 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And he's got almost 500 yards rushing on 140 carries with 3 touchdowns. So, if you're the Giants defensively, it's like, let's stop CMC and let's stop George Kittle. Those are your 2 focuses on defense. Can they do it, folks? Probs not. Last 5 matchups. Last time we played them was that Thursday night game in 2023 where I believe we had just come off that massive, huge comeback win against the Cardinals in the second half, where DJ had that historic performance in the second half, in one of the largest comeback wins in 80 some odd years. And then but in that game against the Cardinals, Saquon got hurt, so we lost him. We didn't have Saquon, we didn't have Andrew Thomas, and so it was like, we're about to get smoked by this 49ers team that's so damn good. But we kept that fairly close for longer than a lot of people expected, and we actually had the lead at one point. I think we went up 12-6 or 12-10 at one point. Matt Breida had a touchdown there because we either recovered a fumbled punt, muffed punt, or something like that, but we got the ball deep in San Francisco territory and converted, and then it was just San Francisco just demolishing us. Previous game before that was the late September game in 2020 when we got trounced 36-9. That was in New York. Before that was the November 12th game in 2018 where Eli This is in San Francisco. I believe this might have been a Sunday night game. I'm not sure, but Eli hit, I believe he hit Sterling Shepard towards the end of that game for the go-ahead score to win that. The November 12th, 2017 game was just abominable, losing to a very bad San Francisco 49ers team, to their third string quarterback or something like that, 31-21 in San Francisco. That was a tough watch. And then before that was the October 11th, 2015 game where we, another late game heroic effort from Eli Manning, where he hit Larry Donnell in the back of the end zone for the go-ahead score. We won at MetLife 30-27. 49ers lead the all-time series 22-21. What little confidence I have that the Giants could possibly pull this out is we do have a 2-1 record at home. And it possibly could have been 3-0 if you had Dart start that game against the Chiefs. You think about all the red zone opportunities we had in that game against the Chiefs and came up empty both times. So you'd have to think that Dart and Scat would be able to help you out there to get 3-0. The Niners are 3-2 away, so they have a worse. Do they have a worse? Yeah, a slightly worse record away than they do at home. They are 26th in points scored per game, which is crazy to think about. They are 8th in points allowed per game. So even though defensively you look at a lot of their 22nd in passing yards allowed per game, they're 15th in rushing yards per game. So giving up a lot of yards, but not giving up a lot of points. They're -5 in takeaway differential, which is 26th in the league. They're second in passing yards per game, but 30th in rushing yards per game, which is unheard of with Kyle Shanahan's offenses, especially with CMC. It feels like that's where they were just really crush opponents was in the run game. So to see them passing a lot more, not having a lot of success in the run game, gives me hope. We are 26th in points allowed per game, giving up almost 27 points per game. Yikes. We're -4 in takeaway differential. Again, that has to do with the fact that our defense just did not create turnovers. You take away that Saints game where we had 5 turnovers offensively. It's like, defense, step it up. 18th in passing yards per game, 15th in rushing yards per game for us offensively, and then we're 24th in passing yards allowed per game and 30th in rushing yards allowed per game. So if there's ever a get-right game for the 49ers rushing attack, it's against this Giants rush defense. Woof. As far as where the 49ers rank from a team offense standpoint, they're tied for the second most turnovers with 12. They've had the second most interceptions thrown, 4th most first downs, 2nd highest turnover percentage. And believe it or not, the Giants team offense has a higher expected points contributed than the 49ers team offense. Let that sink in for a hot sec. 49ers offense is 17th in scoring percentage. They're top 10 in most metrics per drive. So plays per drive, yards per drive, starting position, and time of possession. But they are 23rd in points per drive. So you want to talk about a get-right game for the 49ers rush offense against a piss-poor Giants rush defense. This would be nice if the Giants defense could actually create some turnovers, because it seems like the 49ers offense, at least under Mac Jones, is prone to turnovers. So let's get some freaking turnovers, okay? As far as the 49ers passing offense, how do they rank? They're 3rd in completions, 4th in attempts, 2nd most total passing yards, and the 2nd most yards per game. They're 10th in net yards per attempt. They're 1st in first downs by pass, but they're tied for the 8th lowest touchdown percentage, the 4th highest interception percentage, and the 10th lowest sack percentage. They're 11th in expected points contributed. So seems like there are some opportunities there for our Giants secondary to possibly get an interception. That would be sweet, but doubt it will happen. I'm curious to know how long Adebo and Holland will be out, because if they're out again, it's going to be a long freaking day, dude. Where does the 49ers rushing offense rank league-wide? They're 8th in attempts, but way down the rankings in total yards. They have the fewest rushing yards per attempt at 3.4. Good news, San Francisco. That number is probably going to go up after this Week 9 game against New York. They have the third lowest yards per game, as we mentioned, tied for the fewest rushing touchdowns and tied for the fifth most fumbles. And they have the third lowest expected points contributed. So, my God, dude. Again, this is a huge opportunity for the Giants defense to redeem themselves, to stop the run, because it seems like there's a greater degree of probability of success for them to stop the run, to force some turnovers, and to put our offense in good position to score. So that's offense. Not too terribly worried about that offense, although with George Kittle back in the mix, we have not done well against George Kittle and against tight ends in general. So I think if the 49ers are going to have success, it's going to be a mixture of it's going to be heavily dependent on George Kittle. How does the 49ers team defense rank? Well, they've allowed the 8th most yards in the league, tied for the 10th highest yards per play, but they are also tied for the most fumbles forced. So we haven't really had an issue outside of the Saints game for fumbleitis, so I don't see that changing, but who knows? I mean, got to be mindful of that. The 49ers team defense is tied for ninth in first downs allowed, and they have the 9th lowest expected points contributed and the 6th highest red zone percentage. As far as their pass defense, they rank 6th for the most passing yards allowed, tied for the 2nd fewest interceptions. They have 1 interception in 2025. So for me, that lets me know, and there's a lot of really bad stats for this pass defense, so it makes me think, Jaxson Dart, put on a show, my guy. This is your opportunity to just go off, get that 300-yard passing yard game that has been fairly elusive through your first however many starts. We know you're going to throw some touchdowns, so that's going to be solid. You're probably going to throw multiple touchdowns. So I'm expecting a big game from Jaxson Dart. They're tied for 6th in net yards per attempt, 7th most first downs by pass, 6th highest average depth of target. So we should be able to see some deep shots. Now, whether or not Dart will be able to make those throws, because I know people have been down on him his success rate throwing down the field has not been great. But we saw, you look at what happened in that Eagles game. It's like you had a drop by Theo Johnson. You had a long pass touchdown called back for a bogus OPI. I still think that this is an opportunity for Darius Slayton to get back on the right side of Giants fans and the coaching staff. I think you are going to see some deep routes with Wan'Dale Robinson. Would be nice to see Belly and Theo get down the field. So we should be seeing a more vertical passing attack against this 49ers secondary. They've allowed the 5th most air yards in the league, but they do have the 6th lowest yak allowed. So I would imagine you're going to see maybe a lot of contested catches, not a lot of separation. And so I don't know that you're going to see yak, but at least you'll see some big chunk plays from the Giants offensively through the air. This 49ers defense has the 3rd fewest blitzes and the 2nd lowest blitz percentage, which might not work in Dart's favor. It seems like he does well against the blitz, better than most quarterbacks. And so without that kind of blitzing pressure, is he going to have too much time? And then when he gets too much time, is he going to force something or take a sack? I don't know. They're tied for the 4th lowest hurry percentage, they have the lowest knockdown percentage. They are tied for the 2nd fewest sacks. They only have 9 sacks on the season so far through 8 weeks. They have the 2nd lowest sack percentage, the lowest pressure percentage at 10%, the 5th fewest passes defended, the 10th highest passer rating allowed, the fewest QB hits, and the 7th lowest expected points contributed. So I would be fucking shocked if Jaxson Dart doesn't have a career day through the air against this 49ers secondary and defense, especially with Fred Warner not in the mix. Rush defense, you're not going to see many stats in here. There's no big outliers or anything that sticks out to you. There's only 2 that really I picked up on. They're tied for the third fewest rushing touchdowns allowed, and they're 13th in expected points contributed. So the rush defense is significantly better than the pass defense. And is this a case of when we do get in the red zone, we're not going to be able to run for touchdowns. We're going to have to rely on Dart's arm. We'll see. Special teams wise, they're tied for the fourth lowest net yards per punt. They're third in terms of total punts downed inside the 20, and they have the fourth highest percentage of punts downed inside the 20. So I don't know that you are going to get. I don't see that as like a big disadvantage or anything that's going to affect us. Just because I've seen Dart be able to go on long drives, it doesn't matter what the starting position is for him. They have the fifth highest yards per punt return and the fourth lowest field goal percentage. So that's one thing that I hope that we can step up defensively is let's not allow them in the red zone. And let's hold up in the red zone and let's force field goals because they're probably going to miss it. I mean, this is where it comes back to, I think it was Jake Moody. He was so bad with the team that they cut him, and then he ended up with the Bears, I want to say. I'm not quite sure how the new kicker is doing. I don't think he's doing that well. I know he won the game against the Rams on that Thursday night contest, but not that I feel any better about our kicker situation because you just know Gano's going to get fucking hurt again and we won't have anyone. Special teams, it would be nice for special teams to come up big this week. I feel like they've had a couple down weeks. It would be nice to get some nice returns out of them, and maybe our kickoff coverage unit will be a little bit better this go around. But this is when you first looked at the schedule, when it first came out in May, you were like, this is a loss. Like the Niners are so good. And yeah, they weren't great last season, but again, it was because of injuries. They're one of the most injured teams in the NFL. And you're like, at 100% health, they're gonna win, and handedly. But it's like, all right, they're banged up. Kittle just came back. Purdy's probably still out. CMC had an injury that might be affecting how he's playing. But they're by no means this team that you saw go to the Super Bowl a couple years ago. I wouldn't be shocked if they missed the playoffs this year. It just doesn't feel like the same dominant 49ers team of years past. But again, we said that about the Eagles going into this Week 8 game, and they just end up winning by 18. So, but it's in Philadelphia. It was in Philadelphia, which is a house of horrors. And this one will be at MetLife, where we fare better. It would be nice to get a win because I don't know what to think about the Bears, but the Bears game also feels like it could be winnable. I know there's a bit of a culture change going on there where they were really feeling themselves after that big win against Washington, but then you come out and you lose by 2 scores to the fucking Ravens, who are without Lamar Jackson, who've had a really bad defense so far. So, and it's in Chicago, which doesn't give me a lot of hope. So, but you sneak a win against San Fran at home, possibly sneak a win against the Bears. You're now looking at your 4-6, but then you got to face the Packers, Lions, and Patriots. Two of those 3 away. I know I keep talking myself back into like a miracle playoff run, fully knowing that this coaching staff does not have it within them to do that. But hot damn, you can see the Bears are good. They're better this year than they were in years past. And Ben Johnson seems like a legit head coach, but you now have people questioning whether Caleb Williams really is the guy. I feel like Caleb Williams is going through or Bears fans are going through with Caleb Williams, what Giants fans went through with Daniel Jones, where it's like, he is the guy, he's the guy. So it's very divisive over whether or not Caleb Williams is the dude there. But the Packers are they feel like a juggernaut who are they have not, like they're 5-1-1, but they have not, it's not, to tie the Cowboys and to, really squeak one out against the Cardinals, who didn't have Kyler Murray. They really turned it on the second half against the Steelers there. But it does feel like the Packers are probably going to hold on to that number 1 seed, especially if they can just all put it together. which is, I know it's nuts to say considering they only have 1 loss and 5 wins, but fortunately that game is at home, so I don't think it's going to be as bad of a beatdown as it would be if we went to Lambeau. And then at Detroit, that's going to be ugly. That is going to be ugly. And then at New England, where the Patriots are just could be undefeated. I know, like, I had them down as like, oh, they're going to get the 7th seed and they're going to be the last wild card team. And it's looking like they could win the AFC East and have like the number 2 seed in the AFC if they keep things up. So, they look. That's the game that we had on the big TV when I was in Block Island for the weekend for my buddy's birthday. He's a Pats fan, and like, the Browns were kind of hanging in there for a half, and then, you hit Diggs on a great play towards the end zone. You hit Butte. The Keyshawn Butte is like awesome, and that defense is just superb. So that feels like that's not going to be as. I originally was really looking forward to that after we beat the Chargers and after we beat the Eagles. I was like, that's going to be a really good game now, and I don't foresee that happening. And then we have the bye week, and I really do think that if we don't win another game before the bye week and we go in there 2-11 or whatever, just clean house. And I don't know that it's really gonna help you in terms of ticket sales or anything like that, but maybe it's just like people are so relieved that you don't have to look at Brian Dable in a post-game loss press conference that maybe they do show up and they want to see whoever they make coach. Then that would be the time to do it. Would be during the bye week. Like, you go into New England, but this is where the coaching staff, it's like if you had anything in the tank, this is your last hurrah. This 49ers team is beatable, dude. They're beatable. Let's beat them. Let's go to 3-6. Then let's go to Chicago and let's beat them and go 4-6. And then you have a big game against the Packers. And it's like, that's where, if you're 4-6 and you come into this next 3-game stretch against the Packers, Lions, and Patriots, and you are competitive in losses, and you go to 4-9, and then you finish out like you're probably not getting fired during the bye week. At 4-9, you're not getting fired then. And then if you win out and go 8-9, that's where things get really dicey. And I can see this Giants administration or front office really talking themselves into keeping these guys and retaining them. I've already made my thoughts clear on this. They not only have to make the playoffs, they have to win 2 playoff games for me to bring back Shane and Dable. I'm so far out on them, but that's where it gets a little dicey. Is like if they do end up going 8-9 on a 4-game win streak to end the season. So it's not like, I know 2-6 without Neighbors, without Skattebo, it feels like the season's over. And a lot of people have been saying that, oh, season's over before November. But fucking A, dude. You win these next 2 games, Niners, Bears. I don't know, and this is where it's going to be tough because, like, the trade deadline, I just don't see them doing anything. Tuesday, November 4th at 4 p.m. is the deadline, correct? So this is where it gets interesting because you go out and you beat the 49ers. Oof, 3-6. Coach is on the hot seat. GM is on the hot seat. Feels like you would make a move there. You lose to the Niners. You're 3-7. I can't see anyone giving anyone the green light to buy at the deadline. So they win, most likely buying. Hopefully it does not. It doesn't have any long-term ramifications. If they lose, I would think you should probably sell. I would hope that you would sell. So, all right. That's the episode. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. I apologize for my appearance. Did not get a lot of sleep this last weekend. Yeah, what's coming up? I don't know, dude. That's Superman review. I really want to knock it out tomorrow, but we'll see. And then Mets hired a new hitting coach. It looks like they're not going to retain their first base coach, which just seems like such a huge mistake. But that's it for today. All right. We'll talk to you next time. Adios, muchachos.